Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Pablo over at Real Street Performance, also known by my YouTube channel, SB Tuning. We're here with my 1997 Acura Integra. So I actually got this car roughly around 2013, if I'm not mistaken. I've had it for quite a while now. It has been always kind of like a garage-built DIY, how to do it yourself at the house, and it's gone through a couple different variations. Started originally NA, then it went turbocharged on a simple like eBay turbo kit, kind of bare bones, ugly car with trying to make the most power as possible. But now we've actually vamped it up to be a little bit more conservative and consistent, which brought it to the current build that we're at right now. Originally, we did put the motor together as an LS VTEC, what's commonly known as a non-VTEC bottom end with a GSR or B16 head. It originally started just NA. We got it running like that. Obviously, the bug kind of gives you the itch and you want to make a little more power. We went turbo from that point forward, kind of simple bolt-on components to accommodate the turbocharger build. And you kind of just get the bug to want to make more power. We got it to its last setup making the mid 600 horsepower at about 659, and the best we did with the car was 10.2 at the track.
Something fluff.
10.2 at 146.
Obviously, there were steps going up to that, and it always has been a street car, but we also enjoy the track aspect of it and have been able to push the limits of kind of the stock sleeves that it had at the point. At the moment, we have worked up to a fully sleeved engine. Now it's still an LS VTEC, but with O-rings, fully sleeved, pistons, rods, head package, and supporting mods like that. For the rotating assembly, we're still using the OEM Honda crankshaft, which is actually a really stout crankshaft from the factory. It does very well as long as it's still in good operating conditions. We have I-beam connecting rods along with Arius pistons. That combination right there is about 10.5 to 11 in the compression, given the cylinder head configuration that we have. So it's right on that high 10, really nice for spooling, and with the fuel that we're using, the 1-ethanol E85, it still keeps it at a very conservative rate for what we're trying to do. Moving on to the block itself, it's an AEBS sleeved engine by JBR. It has O-rings in it as well, copper O-rings, to help the sealing of the head gasket onto the cylinder head as well. All assembled actually at my house, so this is all documented on the channel if you want to check it out as well on how we built it. On the cylinder head, it's still a GSR cast cylinder head. It's ported and polished by myself in the garage, just kind of picking it up, practicing, trying to do it myself. For the head package, we're using SuperTech valves, valve springs, and retainers. I think it's 95-pound seat pressure on them. Since we're going to be doing a lot of racing, we want to make sure that there's no valve float at all. For the cams themselves, they're actually off-the-shelf Pro 1 cams by Skunk 2. They make a really nice camshaft for these B-Series engines. Make a lot of power, still keep drivability in mind, so we're able to street drive it as much as we want. Cam gears, simple adjustable cam gears. One, we have a Golden Eagle. Another, we have a T1 for the pickup on the cam sensor for the coil-on plug. Exhaust manifold is a Whitfield manufacturer exhaust manifold that actually places the turbo right in the headlight, so we really like that manifold. For the intake side, we're using the Skunk 2 Ultra Race with the bigger plenum to essentially have a little bit more air in there, as well as the Ross 90mm throttle body. While we went with the Whitfield manufacturer turbo manifold, the rest of it was actually done in my garage with a welder that I picked up online, and the full turbo kit from the charge piping, all pie cutted, the up pipes. I even bought a Vibrant core, made core end tanks to weld on and everything. It's all done in-house, and I document all that on the channel as well. For fuel system, we are running the FIC 2150s. At the point that we're at, we're pretty much maxed out on it for fueling. We are going to be running a secondary set of injectors soon. For the fuel pump, we're running a MagnaFuel 750, which supports on ethanol roughly about 1,000 horsepower. So we still have a little bit of cushion room to move forward in the future if we want to add some more power. Fuel cell is just a stock location aftermarket fuel cell with a sump at the bottom for gravity feeding onto that pump. The transmission is actually a really simple setup. Since we're going with the GSR head, we wanted to match it with the GSR transmission as well. It has a really nice gearing. Without being as long as an LS transmission, for you Honda people who know, it has a perfect mid-range from like a turbo car. So we're running the GSR trans. It has 5th gear deleted using a 5th gear cuff by M Factory. We also have the M Factory LSD as well as long 1st gear to help a little bit on the 60-foot at the track. Very simple transmission, but that being said, we're still utilizing a stock 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So while we max out the injectors on this current setup, before we move over to the 8 injector setup, we want to make sure that we have a good transmission to put down that power with. Little by little, we'll be saving up for a PPG, and that's essentially what we'll be using in the future. But for the time being, we're still running off of those stock components. Coolant system was actually pretty cool. I made a little swirl pot out of old intercooler piping and directed it towards the rear. We have a Volkswagen Scirocco core that we've retrofitted with AN fittings on the side of it, so we could actually run the coolant to the back and still have good clearance on the bottom of it. And that goes along with an electronic water pump, as well as dash 16 AN lines all the way from the front to the back. And it actually does a really good job of cooling the engine. We've seen super low temperatures on it, and it keeps the radiator core away from the hot components that we have, obviously like the turbo and the turbo manifold. And it keeps the intercooler at its healthiest point with isolating the two variables without heat soaking each other. On the electronic side of things, we actually decided to go with a Fueltech FT550. And what we really like about it, it's all inclusive on a little dash display. It's fully touchscreen and you can do changes on the fly. Especially with this being a street car that we might not always have a laptop on us, you're able to just click the screen right there, change the map if you want, look at live data. For the wiring, we did have to do a custom wiring harness by Magma Tuning. We did a full mil-spec, Raychem, bulkhead connector on the firewall, the works. And that includes a detachable coil section. So if we want to change out that section of wiring, if we want to do like smart coils in the future, whatever it may be, as well as an expandable unit for 4 more injectors when we choose to go that direction. We don't have to cut into wiring or anything. There already is a supplemented plug there that we can just add on to. Now, obviously the car, for those of you who are familiar with it already, the name is La Fea, which in Spanish means the ugly girl. Obviously the engine bay looks really nice. We've done a lot of attention to it because that's the heart of the whole car. We want to make sure that it runs well, performs well, and is consistent. A big advantage that these Hondas and Acuras really have over the other imports or even some of the domestic cars is definitely the weight. At its last version of the car, it was 2096 without me in it. And given that we added a few things, relocated the radiator to the back, manifold's obviously bigger, it's a forward facing now. I wanna say it's roughly at about 2150 if I had to guess. It's still a super light car, especially for a car that makes over 200 horsepower a cylinder. That power to weight ratio is definitely an advantage when it comes to racing. Overall, we're super happy with where the car is right now. It made really good power for what the setup currently is, and we're really planning to dial it in where it's at, make sure it's consistent. And at that point that we want to make a little more power, then we'll step up to a bigger turbo. It's currently only on a 67 millimeter. We're going to go larger, go ahead with that PPG in the future, and be able to really bring the car up to compete in the goal of sport front wheel drive class. Obviously, that's a little bit further down the line, but that's what the end goal is. If you guys want to check out a little bit more about the car, you can find it on YouTube, SB Tuning, or on Instagram, Slow Integra, for closer updates. And you know, we're just going to be having fun with the car and really enjoying it from this point forward. I also do want to give a huge thank you to a couple people who helped out a lot with the build. First and foremost, to Real Street Performance for giving us the platform, as well as being able to use all these components and the facility as well. 1-ethanol for the great fuel. We really enjoyed how it performed on the dyno. Actually does very well compared to other pump gases or even race ethanol, so we're really happy with that. Huge shout out to Fueltech for supplying the excellent electronics, being able to monitor all the data as needed. Magma Tuning for putting in the work with the wiring and the tuning, came out phenomenal. Of course, the wife, thank you for letting me pursue this whole passion and not make me sleep outside. Definitely thank you for S1 Built. Those of you who have followed the channel before, you know that they've worked a lot with us on R&D for the all-wheel drive components, and in this case, the front-wheel drive components as well, on the suspension end of things. Whitfield Manufacturing for the great design turbo manifold. You can't get much better with the placement of that turbo right there, especially on a 2 per side headlight. Integra front bumper, it looks phenomenal with that turbo placement right there. Huge shout out to all the homies who helped out. You guys know who you are. Being there late nights, early mornings, helping out with the car at events, at the house, wherever it may be. You guys mean a lot to me, and you know exactly who you are. You don't even have to mention it. But yeah, guys, thank you everyone who was able to lend a hand with the build. This is just the beginning. We've been on different steps of the build, and we're only going higher from this point forward. And yeah, thank you everyone for the support.